Jimmy, welcome.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me again. Hey, if this is the mother of all talk shows, is there a father of all talk shows?
You could be the father of all talk shows, Jimmy. I'd be delighted to be twinned with you into eternity. Jimmy, let's
Okay.
take a look at the latest tragi-comedy. It's only 20 seconds. Bear with me.
Uh,
Let's look at Joe Biden's latest outing.
Mr. President, thank you. At the end of such a momentous event, the word thank you seems kind of inadequate. But for all the millions whose lives will be saved, for the communities where life will be transformed, thank you. So thank you, President Biden.
The,
you notice
the
how he
word
walks
thank
with his
you.
hands?
The word thank you seems strangely inadequate, said the chairman. Jimmy, over to you.
Well, do you notice how he walks with his hands out like that? Like he has his hands kind of like in front of him. And I'm told that that's how people who are demented walk. So we know that Joe Biden is demented. This isn't something that happened once. This isn't something that happens twice. This isn't something that happened three, four, or five times. This is something that happens every time he finishes a speech. He doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know where to go. And he's walking with his hands out like that. And I mean, he's like a child. You wouldn't, if Joe Biden was a regular American, you'd take his keys to his car away because he wouldn't know how to. They would have to do a silver alert. They have these things in America called silver alerts where your cell phone has an alarm on it, and it means that an elderly person has gotten lost and wandered away from their home. And that's what Joe Biden would be getting if he didn't have handlers. But why? This goes to show how bad are his handlers. They know this happens to him all the time, and they still don't have a plan for it. They don't have a regular that an assistant or an aide would come up and walk him off stage and show him where to go. They don't do it. This is elder abuse. And, I do a joke in my act about Joe Biden was supposed to be here tonight, except he got stuck in a couch. He really does get stuck in couches. That's what that is the equivalent of. And I don't understand why his staff hasn't come with up with a plan and how to get him off of a stage. That's the basics he can't do. He can't get off of a stage. Anyway.
Why put him on a stage? Now, look, Jimmy, in my religion, it's a sin to mock the afflicted. But this man is afflicting the rest of the world. So
Yes.
it would be a sin not to highlight his inadequacy.
So I'm not making fun of Joe Biden's dementia. I'm making fun of the lie they're telling us about Joe Biden's mental state. That's why you can make fun of Joe Biden. That's why you can make fun of this situation. We're not laughing at a demented person. We're laughing at the most powerful organization in the world lying to us right on camera. That's what this is. This is a lie. This is a lie equivalent to WMDs. This is the equivalent to the lie that led us into Libya. This is equivalent to the lie that led us into Syria. This is equivalent to the lie that has us committing a genocide in Yemen. This is equivalent to the lie that has us in bed with terrorists in Ethiopia. This is bigger than any lie Trump ever told. The lie that Joe Biden is not demented is a serious lie with serious consequences. And I tweeted out that video on my Twitter feed, and I asked people, who do you think is actually running the country? Because it's not this guy. He can't even get himself off a stage. I wouldn't ask that guy directions to the freeway. Are you kidding me? This guy's running the world. So who is making the decisions? It's certainly not Kamala Harris. Who's making the decisions on Ukraine? Who is making the decisions that have ramped up our inflation here to a 40-year high? And he goes on television nightly. Whenever he gives an interview, they have to immediately walk back everything he said. He did a 60 Minutes interview this week, and immediately he said, "Yeah, we would go to war to defend Taiwan," and then they had to immediately walk it back. Everything this guy says, they have to immediately walk back. The pandemic is over, but we have to walk that back. Everything he says, he's not the president. I mean, he is technically and legally the president, but we all know that he's not running the country. So I want to know who really is. I wish someone would ask his press secretary who is a great liar. She's better than Trump's liars. And I wish that they would ask her who's really running the country.
Well, there's this bag, isn't there? They call it the football, which literally has the nuclear triggers in it. It cannot possibly be at the bottom of his bed, Jimmy, because anything could happen. He could fall over it, he could confuse it with the remote control for the television.
Yeah, the fact that the idea that Joe Biden has, so that was what we were supposed to be afraid of under Trump, George. Remember that? We were supposed to be afraid that Donald Trump, this madman, has his finger on the nuclear button. And now here we are, a guy who's visibly demented. They're lying about it, and he has his finger on the nuclear button as he's saber rattling with two nuclear powers, Russia and China. And I don't know why people in America or people in Europe are letting this happen. I don't understand what they get. I mean, I get that this is all about economics and the United States selling more liquefied natural gas to Europe. So if there's going to be a war, it's going to be about natural resources. So that's what this is at. But I don't really get what's in it for Germany, for the citizens. I get what's in it for the oligarchs, but I don't get it what's in it for the citizens. And I don't understand why they're putting up with it. Like, what's going to happen in Germany this winter with their energy costs? These are dire circumstances right now. And so I don't understand why so they say that now that Trump is gone, Joe Biden is the adult in the room. It's more like the adult diaper in the room is Joe Biden. He's not the adult in the room. He's the guy you need to take care of in the room. He's not the guy to lead the free world.
Now, we used to hear, speaking of Trump, all the time, the demand that the cabinet triggers Article 25 of the US Constitution and find that Donald Trump is not fit to carry out his duties, a kind of palace coup using the 25th Amendment. Now, if that was the talk of the town, the talk of the liberal town at least, the talk of New York town, city, why isn't it now? Why doesn't anyone raise now that, look, we'd be doing Joe Biden a favor? We'd be being compassionate to trigger Article 25 now.
So the reason why they were talking about doing that to Donald Trump and they're not talking about doing that to Joe Biden is because Joe Biden does the bidding of the establishment lock, stock, and barrel. So they don't care who the president is, how demented he is, how anything he is, as long as he's doing what they say. And he's doing exactly what they say. He's not giving people a living wage. He's not giving people health care. And he's saber rattling with two nuclear powers. And he's doing all the war stuff that they want him to do. And so they don't want to get rid of Joe Biden. He's the perfect guy to them to have in that office. And the reason why they don't want Trump in that office is because he puts a bad face on the establishment and imperialism. And so, the reason why they hate Donald Trump isn't because he's a liar. It's because every once in a while he accidentally tells the truth that you're not supposed to tell. Like, for instance, when they said, hey, why are you staying in Syria? He says, we're staying for the oil. No, you can't say that. No, we're staying for the oil. You have to say it's about democracy. You have to say it's about liberty. We're helping the people. No, we're staying for the oil. That's why we're staying. So that's why they can't have him. Because, and as much as Trump wants credit for spearheading Warp Speed, which gave us the mRNA vaccine for COVID in America, they won't give him credit. They still paint Donald Trump as an anti-vaxxer. And why won't they give him credit for the vax that he wants? Because he's a bad face. He's bad for the brand. They can sell more vaccines with demented Joe than they can with lying Donald Trump. And that's all this is. So that's why I've tried to explain this to people on my show. Why do they hate Donald Trump so much? He's not legislating any different than the rest of them. He didn't give us jobs. He didn't give us health care. He didn't end the wars and invest that money back here, but he did give a tax cut to millionaires and billionaires, just like all the other garbage, just like Barack Obama, just like George Bush before him, just like Bill Clinton before him. They crushed the working class and they filled the pockets of the elite. That's what they did during COVID. And so that's why they That's why Joe Biden is not being asked to leave office and Donald Trump was, because Donald Trump is at a bad face for the brand of imperialism and American establishment. And that's what because every time when Donald, and I predicted it, that would happen. Once Donald Trump became president, people would then become aware of the horrible stuff Barack Obama and George Bush and Bill Clinton before him were all doing. And they're all doing in bipartisan unity. So when Donald Trump banned Muslims at the airport, Muslim immigrants, people then found out, why are there Muslim immigrants at the airport? Oh, because Barack Obama bombed them for 8 straight years. And the establishment doesn't want you to understand that. Just like when we found out Donald Trump was putting immigrant kids in cages, and then we found out Barack Obama and Joe Biden built those cages, and they can't have you putting together those pieces. And so and then you find out Donald Trump is gassing immigrants at the border. You find out that also Barack Obama gassed immigrants at the border. And I guess they should be honored they were gassed by the lesser of two evils. So that's the real thing going on here. The president is not the president. The president is only the president as long as he does the bidding of the oligarchy and the establishment. And that is not hyperbole. Barack Obama, who everybody thought was a lefty socialist, got more money from Wall Street than his Republican opponent. His entire cabinet came from Wall Street. WikiLeaks revealed that, which is why they want to kill him, because he tells the truth about people like Joe Biden and Barack Obama. So that's exactly what's going on. That's why Joe Biden is allowed to be president, even though he can't even get himself off of a stage. That's what's really going on. And people don't know that, and people don't want to know that.
Is there another issue, Jimmy? I used to work for the satirical magazine Private Eye in London, and when Richard Nixon had Spyro Agnew as his vice president, they had a picture of the two of them on their front page. And in the speech bubble, Nixon's pointing at Agnew and he says, "No one's going to shoot me with this guy next in line." Is there something in the Kamala Harris issue that they can't get rid of Joe Biden because that makes Kamala Harris the president?
Hey, you know what? That's a great point. Yes, exactly right. People don't. What a better insurance policy for Joe Biden to remain president than to pick Kamala Harris as his vice president. Boy, oh boy, she sounds like Joe Biden, and she's of sound mind. That's what's bad. That's what's bad about Kamala Harris. I don't get what people see in Kamala Harris. Every time she talks, she embarrasses herself. And, you know, she's supposed to be in charge of the border crisis in the United States. And they keep asking her, "Hey, have you been to the border yet?" She hasn't even been to the border yet. So they're clowns, right? So what people don't know about Kamala Harris is that she was actually the first choice of the oligarchy to be president. She was the first one who went to Martha's Vineyard, and they canonized her. They anointed her. They gave her all the money, and they thought that they had they had a female Barack Obama. They thought they had an attractive African-American who spoke eloquently and could get people to go to sleep while the oligarchy and the establishment crushed them economically, which is what Barack Obama did. Barack Obama was a sweet talker, and he made people feel good when he spoke while he was screwing them. Barack Obama admitted that he is not a socialist, but that his policies should be considered moderate Republican, which means he's a right-winger, which he was. And so what people don't know is, so when Kamala Harris got anointed by Wall Street and the oligarchy, she then couldn't garner a vote. She went out in the primary and she didn't get one delegate. Nobody would vote for her, even though the establishment had already tapped her and she got all kinds of press. It was all positive. And so what did the oligarchy do then? They went to their next most reliable dupe, the oligarchies, and that is Joe Biden. Joe Biden's been doing the bidding of Wall Street and the military-industrial complex like nobody's business for 40 years in Congress. That's why they went to Joe Biden next, because they knew he was reliable. They went from Kamala Harris, they went to Joe Biden. And that's why we have the two people we have as president and vice president, not because they're actually leaders, but because they are the biggest dupes and the most corruptible pieces of garbage in politics. That's how they became president and vice president, not because they're leaders, but because they're 100% corrupt.
Jimmy, are you thinking about a run as a third-party candidate? Everyone watching this tonight will be hoping your answer to that is yes.
So the idea, I wish someone with my message would run for president, right? Because the message that I'm carrying on my show is that the thing that scares the hell out of the establishment the most is to see people on the left and the right realizing we have a common enemy, the establishment that has been crushing us both. You know, we went through a 2 years of a controlled demolition of our economy during COVID, and the handful of billionaires and millionaires, they all got richer while we all got poorer, and they want me to blame my neighbor for the pain that we're all feeling economically because they wouldn't take a vaccine that didn't work the way they said it did. And I'm not going to blame my neighbor for that. I'm going to love my neighbor. And so what we're realizing is that we actually have a lot of things in common, left and right. Like, we're against the wars and we want to invest that money back here. We're for a living wage. We're for healthcare in America. So we're for education that doesn't bankrupt us. So we've got a lot of stuff in common. And what they don't want us to realize that, which is why they have to call half the country fascists now. They have to say the enemy is now within, which is what every dictator does. Every fascist dictator does. And that's what Joe Biden has done. That's what the Democratic Party does. But the Democratic Party is the establishment. So the Republican Party is not different than the Democratic Party. They answer to the same people. Trump was an outsider in that. And they're trying to make him seem like he's some kind of special kind of crazy, when all he wasn't as easily controlled as every other politician, because he didn't come up, he doesn't own the favors, and they didn't own him, which is why they had to do 4 years of Russiagate. And now they're still doing FBI raids of his house because they know they're so corrupt. The Democrats and Republicans aren't going to give you any legislation that actually helps your life in a material way. So they have to do all this stuff like we're fighting fascism, like Trump's some kind of a fascist, instead of what he is, which is a game show host. And so that's what this is all about. And they can't let Trump win because they're so corrupt. He would beat them again, which is why they have the FBI going through his closet.
Is that a maybe?
Oh, so if I ran, and the idea would be to get 10% of the vote, and if we could get 10% of when people called on polls and stuff like that, that gives you power. And so now we can become the kingmaker. Now the Democrats can't get elected without us. The Republicans can't get elected without us. So now we have a little bit of power, a little bit more negotiating room to demand some things for people in the United States. And that's always been the idea. And that's always been the idea that scared the hell out of them. Ralph Nader wanted to do the same thing in 2000. And you've seen what they've done to Ralph Nader. He is persona non grata in this entire country. One of the greatest people who ever came out of this country. And so look what and that's why Bernie never ran third party, because he knew they would do that to him. And if I ran third party and it actually was successful and I actually started to get 10% in the polls, I will guarantee you they would find kiddie porn on my computer. Because that's the kind of stuff those people do. We're talking about people who kill people for a living. What do you think they're doing in Yemen? They're committing a genocide for money. What do you think we did in Libya? Committing a genocide for money, turning that place into a slave trade. What do you think we did in Iraq? We killed 1 million people for money. What do you think we're doing in Ukraine? We're using those people as cannon fodder for money. And if you don't think they would do the same thing to somebody like me if I actually could threaten the establishment, they would. The first thing they do is they take down my channel. That's the first thing they do. And then they plant kiddie. If I didn't go away, they'd plant kiddie porn on my computer. You know that's what they would do. Jill Stein was the Green Party candidate in 2012. She showed up. They wouldn't let her in the debate. They won't even let the people hear you if you're a third party in the United States. They wouldn't let her in the debate. She showed up to the debate. They handcuffed her in the basement for 8 hours. That's what they did to a doctor who was running as a Green Party candidate. And she showed up to a debate. They handcuffed her in the basement for 8 hours. Why? Because the truth is a threat. And so I don't think
Jimmy
I'm going
Dore. Jimmy Dore, there's many people watching this who'll be hoping that you change your mind on that. Jimmy Dore of the Jimmy Dore Show, a legend of show business and now of politics. Thanks for joining us on the mother of all talk shows.